What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we've got Lord Megatron that we need to have a look at. I know we've only just looked at General Optimus Prime, but when the lovely folks at IGN.com revealed two incredibly exciting new cards at the same time, I'm afraid I have to go into video mode. So, Lord Megatron then. It is a 12-star character, which is fairly expensive, though not hideously expensive, not compared to some of the other cards we've seen. I mean, we've had a 13-star Megatron in the past, and the stats are good. 16 health is very high. Defensive 2 or 3 is fine. It's honestly not particularly exciting, if I'm honest with you. We can do better. An attack of 4 or 5 again is fine. The attack and defense here are both fine, but the health is what we really like. One thing I do find very interesting here is that the ult mode just has better attack and defense. Often we see one's better in one mode, one's better in the other. Here, we've just got it has better stats in ult mode. And I want to start with the skills in ult mode. When you flip to this mode, your opponent scraps a number of cards from the top of their deck equal to this character's defense total. Well, I read that and I'm like, well, on the one hand, yeah. On the other hand, Transformers isn't a game with milling. Now, milling, for those that might be unfamiliar, is where you attempt to win the game by running your opponent out of cards. There are card games like Pokemon and Final Fantasy, where if you run out of cards, you lose the game. Slightly more nuance than that, but that'll do for now. But that is not the case with Transformers. With Transformers, when you run out of cards in your deck, you shuffle up your scrap pile becomes a deck, and you're off and rolling. So why are we milling here? Well, one reason we want to be milling, very simply, is, okay, they might go back, but you're still getting rid of those cards for now. You might be able to flip over a card that they want, but they've lost it, so now they're going to have to wait for it to come back round again. But honestly, it's rarely going to give you a huge advantage. No, doesn't seem to make a huge amount of sense until we look at the bot mode skill, and you'll notice this is the same as the artwork from the front of the pack, not a coincidence. When your opponent reshuffles their deck, they choose one of their characters and do damage to it equal to this character's attack total. Oh, that's why we want to be milling our opponent's deck. That makes perfect sense now. Your goal is to try and discard a whole bunch of cards on the top of your opponent's deck to force them into having to reshuffle their deck so that they've got to take the damage. Now, like we've seen with Nemesis Prime back in Wave 1, your opponent chooses where the damage goes. And this does make the skill quite a lot weaker. It is far, far better if you get the choice of where the damage goes. If your opponent does, they can just stash it on a character that it's not going to really impact. Or if you're really unlucky, your opponent might have a character down like, for instance, Captain Ironhide. The problem is that Captain Ironhide cannot take non-attack damage. And we've seen on many rulings in the past, do check out the rules roundups on this channel if you haven't been previously, if you have a choice, you are perfectly entitled to direct the non-attack damage to Captain Ironhide, and then you don't take it because Captain Ironhide can't take non-attack damage, and it's gone. It goes away. That's an issue, ladies and gentlemen. The fact that your opponent chooses where the damage goes does make it a lot weaker. But remember the rule. The second you run out of cards in your deck, you shuffle up your discard pile and that becomes your deck, or scrap pile as we call them in Transformers. The point here is that it could be in the middle of their turn, it could be during an attack, it could be while they're defending. And the fact of the matter is, let's say for argument's sake, you're just doing 4 damage. Well, that's a lot. Like, your base attack is 4. So if you only deal 4 damage, Well, that's 4 zap. Or to put it another way, that's more than Bolt of Lightning, and Bolt of Lightning is a star card. Yeah, that's pretty gosh darn awesome. And it is all the damage to one of their characters. They can't spread it around to help mitigate the damage being done, to help mitigate the impact. They have got to take all 4 damage onto one character. This ain't good, ladies and gentlemen. This ain't good. It's a huge amount of damage. And bearing in mind, that is just the base. Now, let's say it's just 4 for a minute. And again, just do this during a game. Next time you're playing Transformers, when your deck shuffles up, look at your board and ask yourself, can any of my characters afford to take 4 damage this turn? Because the answer a lot of the time is going to be no. You might end up KOing a character when your opponent doesn't even have to attack. You might end up putting a character into KO range that was previously not in KO range. This can be absolutely devastating. Now, the other thing you can do here is increase the attack. Really go for it here. Really play around. Now, Megatron does actually have his own upgrade here. It is Fusion Cannon of Megatron. Now, it only gives you +1 attack, which is a little bit sad, but it puts you at 5 attack, gives you Pierce 3, and let's face it, you're still dealing 5 damage to one of your opponent's characters. But you can get super cheeky with this. So let's say, for argument's sake, you look at your opponent's deck, and they've got 1 card remaining. Well, you know that while they next defend, they're going to have to shuffle their deck. So you get yourself into bot mode, you attack with a grenade launcher, and alright, grenade launcher's going to fall off at the end of your turn. Who cares? Now, your timing here has got to be impeccable. But if your timing is that gosh darned good, you get to do even more. How cool is that, ladies and gentlemen? How cool is that? Or you could just go for something a little bit easier. Maybe wait until you're damaged, then chuck on an Energon Axe, for instance, which will give you +3 attack, which means you're sitting there with a base 7 attack, which means that your opponent has to take 7 damage onto one of their characters when they shuffle their deck. That's pretty nuts. Now, I did put a note on the screen when we got there, but literally while I'm recording this video, for which I have been using official images, data, etc., they have actually posted a new version of Lord Megatron, which ups his health from 16 to 17, and his attack in alt mode from 5 to 6. Now, the images I've been using throughout the video are the updated ones, and there was a note on the screen when it happened, but just in case you missed it, they literally changed the images while I was recording. Annoyingly, the Optimus Prime video is already up, and it's too late. Optimus Prime gains 2 health, which makes it even better. So yeah, Lord Megatron got better, frankly. And I love both the skills on Lord Megatron. In alt mode, doing the whole milling is fine, but it's not terribly exciting. Until you build in the bot mode, at which point it becomes nuts. Plus, you're a ranged character, so you can use cheeky damage like armed hovercraft and marksmanship, which is going to make it even more difficult when your opponent has to take that damage onto themselves when they shuffle up their deck. And speaking of which, there are a couple of characters like Autobot Cosmos and Nemesis Prime, for instance, whose goal is to go through their deck as fast as they can to reshuffle. Those decks are going to have a very bad time against Lord Megatron. You are also a leader, and thanks to Wave 3, there is now an advantage to being a Decepticon leader. It gives you access to Callous Leadership, which says that you can move up to 5 damage counters from a Decepticon leader with 8 stars or more to one of your other characters. Well, that certainly counts for Lord Megatron. And you're a tank. And the best thing about tanks is Hunker Down. I adore Hunker Down. Hunker Down flips all of your tanks that aren't in tank mode to tank mode, and then puts an armor, if you don't have one, from the scrap pile onto it. which is great. You can grab something like a force field, or you can grab an armor to boost your armor so that you can then be milling more cards when you're rolling around in alt mode. It is a phenomenal thing about being a tank. And unlike Optimus Prime earlier, there are very good Megatrons with which we can combine this. I mentioned a 13-star Megatron earlier. That is Living Weapon. That will work very nicely with this. You can have extra weapons in bot mode, and in alt mode you get to return weapons. Bearing in mind you've also got Hunkered Down for playing around with armor, which is just going to give you a lot of upgrades. Although if you're really feeling the upgrades, might I suggest Megatron Arrogant Ruler, the one from Wave 2 that I was lucky enough to reveal, that when you attack you may scrap an upgrade from your hand and draw 2 cards in bot mode, and in alt mode when you flick to alt mode, you may play an upgrade. Or how about the other Megatron from Wave 1? Because, you know, one Megatron Wave 1 just wasn't enough. Decepticon Leader, which is only a 10-star, so this will give you 3 stars to play with afterwards, has Pierce 3 in bot mode, and in alt mode when you flip to it, you can scrap a card from your hand to scrap an enemy upgrade. You're still playing a 2-wide deck, although they have been doing better recently. But double Megatron is very much on the table. This isn't the oh my goodness, that's ridiculous card of General Optimus Prime, but make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen, this is a very, very good card, and it even got a boost to stats between starting and finishing recording this video. It's a bit awkward, and you have to get it working, and it's not the easiest card to take advantage of, but there are going to be times your opponent literally has to take 7 or 8 cheeky damage. That is a decent attack worth just in the middle of their turn or maybe even your turn. Make no mistake about it, this is a very good card indeed. But I would like to know what you think about this card, ladies and gentlemen, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk about Transformers and any other games that take our fancy. And do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio if you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, etc. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.